I believe Ambassador John Sullivan, former U.S. ambassador to Russia under President Trump's first term, former Deputy Secretary of State during that time as well, is joining us. Ambassador, it is stunning, I'm sure, for all of you who have spent time with Vladimir Putin to watch him walk down a red carpet on a U.S. Air Force base with this kind of honored reception. What are your thoughts, and what do you think about what comes next in what will now be a three-way meeting?
Well, it really is an extraordinary event, Margaret. You talk about Putin being welcomed back into the world community after being charged with war crimes by the International Criminal Court, isolated on the world stage, and now he's welcomed in the United States walking down the red carpet. And the fact that they have an expanded delegations on both sides indicates to me that they're going to be talking about a lot more than just Ukraine, which is something the Russians really want. They want this to be a summit meeting between two presidents, not about peace in Ukraine.
There it is, the handshake. I wish we could hear what they are speaking to each other. Vladimir Putin does have some English. He is, of course, a Russian speaker there, and it looked like they had some pleasantries there. They just exchanged. And that military welcome, you know, we should know, John, that what we're also seeing there, the other planes, those are jets. There were also B-2 bombers brought in here that arrived yesterday. And some of that may be due to increased military exercises happening around here. Some of it may be, frankly, staging and a show of force.
Flex, as the kids would call it.
A flex.
As the flyover takes place as the two presidents walk towards yet another piece of stagecraft, Alaska 2025, for what we're told is just going to be another photo opportunity wrapped inside of a photo opportunity.
Ambassador Sullivan, you've been part of meetings with Oh, somebody is yelling there.
Mr. Putin, did you underestimate Ukraine?
The president is ignoring the questions about the ceasefire that are being shouted at him. Some pretty sharp.
The president of Russia pretending to not hear a question about the killing of civilians.
Yes, you heard that. This is on a U.S. military base, so this is a pretty controlled environment. The press was allowed to come in to shoot this arrival. These are pictures. Wow, is he getting into the beast? It looks like the doors are opening there on the president's vehicle, and that both gentlemen are getting in. The feed just went down there. We're seeing another angle of the vehicle. Even for a short trip, that's pretty extraordinary.
Right. Ambassador Sullivan, give us your take on the stagecraft. It might seem to some people to be frivolous. In other instances, particularly between the leaders of these two nations, it can be quite important. What do you make of now the fact that the two men are going to be riding over in private to their formal meeting?
Well, I contrast it with the last meeting that Putin had with an American president, with President Biden in Geneva 4 years ago. The two presidents arrived at a home in Geneva. They shook hands on the front steps and went into a meeting with their Secretary of State and this Russian foreign minister. There was nothing like this spectacular scenery with planes arriving, fighter jets flying overhead, and the two presidents riding together in the limousine of the President of the United States. This really is an extraordinary stagecraft that the United States has put together for President Putin.
Ambassador Sullivan, we're looking at a picture through the front window of the president's vehicle. All we can see are two gentlemen in the front seat, presumably Secret Service, and the two leaders in the back seat. That's also not standard. But I can't tell you if there's a translator in that car. It looked like Vladimir Putin was speaking in English to the President of the United States. How typical is that, or what should we be concerned about? Vladimir Putin there smiling looking and acknowledging the crowds watching him. Ambassador, to not have a interpreter there for the president, does he need that buffer?
Well, I mean, presidents of the United States have met one-on-one with Russian or Soviet leaders, right? Reagan had his famous walk with Gorbachev. So it's happened before. In this case, Putin's English is much better than he lets on. He's not as fluent in English as he is in German. He can converse with the German chancellor in flawless German. His English isn't quite as good, but he could have a conversation with the president in English that President Trump would understand.